There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
You know, a real podcasting and broadcasting professional would wait to clear his throat until he knows the mics are off. I turned the mic on and still cleared my throat, so I apologize. Welcome Inside Edition number 248 of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. This podcast is award-winning, if only in my own mind. Out of the gate here, I can tell you, I'm feeling great as we record today's podcast, thanks to my friends at Beans Coffee Company. Make sure you head on over to coffeebybeans.com. Use that promo code SportsChat. You'll save on the best small batch and locally roasted coffee you will ever put in your mouth. Coffee so flavorful, like the rich and smooth Mikado blend, or one of my favorites, the Perfectus blend. Cherry, clean, but a robust flavor. Blends for all palates at coffeebybeans.com. Promo code SportsChat. Well, as you know, and I just did it seconds ago, I often joke that this podcast is award-winning. Again, if only in my own mind. Well, today on the show, we have a legit Hall of Famer, a man who has won many awards in the broadcasting realm. He is in the National Radio Hall of Fame, a Minnesota Broadcasting Hall of Famer, a 30-plus year radio show host, a Marconi Award winner. He is now the host of his very own podcast, the Tom Barnard Podcast. It is, yes, that Tom Barnard, Mr. Tom Barnard. My man, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad that my wife didn't hear that, because she would have gone, oh, puke. She would have, I'm telling you. Well, yeah, they do keep you humble, don't they? There's no question about that. I just, no, it's very nice of you to point all that stuff out. I kind of forget about that stuff. So to hear it once in a while, it's nice.
Okay, so this will sound bad, and it's not meant to. Does any of that mean anything to you?
Oh, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where it's something I wanted to do since I was 17 years old, and went to Brown Institute and graduated Brown Institute when I was 18 years old. And then I went to work at KDAN, which is no longer around. It was over on 1370 AM, I think, in St. Paul. Yeah, I don't think it's even on the air anymore. It might be, but I don't think so. And then went to Grand Forks, actually, for a couple of months. And then I came down 1500 KSTP. Jim Chanel was the program director. You ever heard that name?
I have not. Well, actually, I take that back. I have, because I've heard the name referenced in this building. So that's a lie to say that I haven't.
Yeah.
But could I pick him out of a lineup, or do I know a ton about him? In all honesty, I do not.
He was a great PD. He hired me after I called him. This is not a lie. It's the truth. I called him 82 times, and he finally said, okay, come in and do the Sunday Jesus tapes. Remember when they used to have the Sunday Jesus tapes?
Tom, I ran those in New Prague in the late 2000s. They would literally drop off an actual cassette tape.
Oh, yeah.
And then you would play them. I think we worked like every third or fourth weekend. So at 8 o'clock, you would play this church. At 9 o'clock,
right,
you would play this church. I still believe, Tom, in small town radio, you are airing church services on weekends.
Oh, yeah.
I still think that's a thing.
No doubt about that. I literally lasted one day running the Jesus tapes because Jim Chanel, the program director, unfortunately, we lost Jim about 2 years ago, something like that. Unfortunately, he died. He was Captain Whammo down in Chicago. He left KSTP and became Captain Whammo. Just insane guy. But he was so nice to me. It was unbelievable. But I did the Jesus tapes, I think, once, maybe twice. And he said, it just doesn't sound right. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, this is what I hear. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Joseph Church services. And then I would come on and I go, yeah, it's like St. Joe's church I used to go, I'd be talking like this. He said, it just is not working at all. Said you sound like some street thug.
I always thought when I did those, the best way to do it, and again, most people who watch this pod or listen to it, they know I weave all over the place. So don't feel bad that we're talking about the church tapes in small town radio. I would always literally, and I'm not joking, Tom, I would do something like, it's 9:02 a.m. and 38 degrees in New Prague. Here is. I would grab the tape and literally read what's on the tape, toss it in.
Yeah.
You could hear the tape deck close, and I would hit play. And again,
I love it.
I'm not even an anti-religious person.
No.
It's just
it's
really tough for me to talk or set something up. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of your church members. I don't know anything about what's going to happen in the next 50 minutes.
That's exactly right. So it all worked out beautifully. And actually around the country, when I would be driving around, I love New Prague, by the way. It's one of my favorite places. There are great restaurants there. People don't know. New Prague has great. Yeah, absolutely. It's phenomenal. I
love the fishtail.
Yeah, New Prague's a great town. But you would drive around and you would hear church services on Sundays on the radio in Polish, in German, in all these different languages. It's like, what? What is that all about? So, yeah, I did that. And then he said, why don't you just do weekend overnights? Do, Saturday night, Sunday night, and you could do the church service. And you won't be doing the church service anymore. You just be on there doing our regular format of 1,500. And by the way, the station had just gone from, I believe, 12th place to second place in the market in 90 days. KSTP, 1,500 KSTP AM was, I believe, in either 11th or 12th place when Jim Chanel took over, Chuck Knapp, because Knapp and Bush at the time, when Charlie Bush was still alive. They went from literally like 12th to second place in the market in 90 days.
I thought you were going to say it was because of the overnight guy.
No, it definitely wasn't that definitely wasn't because of that. But it was one of those situations where I got so lucky because Jim Chanel just got so annoyed that I kept calling him that he finally hired me. Then I did the tapes, and then I did overnights, and then they lost their the weekend overnights, and then they lost their overnight guy. So then I started doing overnights. This is all within about 2 or 3 months. So I started doing the overnight show, and I did that for quite some time. Then the 10 to 2 guy left, so I was moved up to 10 to 2, and that's where, do you remember the name Dr. Brock?
I do, yep.
Dr. Brock did 6 to 10, and I did 10 to 2, and he and I, some days were on the air for 8 hours because I'd come in at 6 and he would leave with me at 2. We'd be on together for like 8 hours in a row.
So you and I, Tom, have some in common, and we're going to get to plenty of sports because I'm going to pick Tom's brain. Tom, equally a part of winning the 1987 World Series as the players on. Okay, maybe a bit of an over-exaggeration.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about that. And Tom, as many people might know, big sports fan, one of the legendary people in the state of Minnesota. So we're going to pick his brain on some sports stuff. But Tom, you and I have a little bit in common from the standpoint of I also went to Brown College.
Right.
You lived in North Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. For a little over a year, I worked at Minneapolis North High School working for Jazz 88.
Did you really?
Yeah.
My
KBEM.
old high school.
Yeah,
Love
so
it.
I was in there for about a year. You and I have off and on been employed by Hubbard Broadcasting.
True.
You have won many awards. I have won mythical awards that I give myself.
There's nothing wrong with that. You got to start somewhere.
You absolutely do. So you and I talked yesterday, and actually you talked about you wanted to do this business forever, and you started when you were how old?
Well, now Jude wants to come in. He's knocking on the door.
I can hear him in the background. For those watching on YouTube, they could see him in the background too.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So
what was the question? Sorry.
When did you start, and when did you know you wanted to do this business?
In some way,
shape, or form.
I basically because I listened to the radio a lot. I always loved the radio, even as a little kid. I loved the radio, but I was I think 4 years old when Elvis Presley hit. And I would listen to Elvis Presley on the AM radio, of course. I didn't have any FM back then. But it was just this wonderful thing. Very quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but my father was institutionalized because he was mentally ill. They took him away in a stretcher, in a straitjacket. So I was looking for things to, brighten up the life a little bit. My father and I never got along, but it's your father, so you miss him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He died very young. He died at 60. And I hadn't even seen him actually for decades before that. But I was looking for companionship because there was none. I was still just, I think they hauled him off in the ambulance. I think I was 7. Very quickly. I talked about it this morning a little bit, or this afternoon. No, I guess it was this morning on the air about the fact that when my father was taken away, he was schizophrenic, and they put him in a straitjacket, so he was all bound up, and they put him on a gurney, and they were wheeling him out, and he was screaming and yelling and spitting and foaming at the mouth and doing all kinds of stuff. My sister Bobby, who's 7 years older than me, there are 7 kids in my family. Yes, I'm Catholic. I just thought I'd mention that.
Dead giveaway at the amount of kids.
Dead giveaway. Absolutely. So they're hauling him out. I'm 7 years old, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, man, does everybody go through this? Does everybody go through this kind of deal? And as they get him out and put him in the ambulance to take him to the institution, my sister Bobby turns to me, and she said, Tommy, I think they think our dad is nuts. And I started laughing. So my sense of humor, that hard edge sense of humor came from my sister Bobby commenting on the fact that they think our dad is nuts.
Well, and it's funny in the sense of it shouldn't be funny, but that's kind of what makes it funny.
Absolutely.
Right? And you're living it and you're seeing it in front of you. And nobody should ever make light of that. Plenty of people. No. We all know there are plenty of people with mental health issues.
Yep.
And plenty of people who deal with exactly what you've said: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression. None of it is to be made light of, and everybody should seek help in any which way that they need it. But to a degree, Tom, when you go through trauma and such, sometimes you do need to find the humor in it. And I'll say this, where that conversation started. I knew from a younger age that I wanted to do at the time it was radio. Now, as you know, radio is kind of ambiguous. It can be a streaming station. It can be a live radio station that most people think of. It can be podcast. I knew I probably wanted to do this somewhere between the age of 10 to 12, and this will be a little bit of a gushy thing, but I will always remember, and partially it's good. We talked about my dad yesterday when I joined your podcast, the Tom Barnard podcast. I will always remember going to school in the morning as a elementary school, junior high, maybe even high school, and he dropped me off, listening to the Tom Barnard morning show.
Oh, really?
And then in the afternoon, a gentleman who I got to intern under and work with to a degree for a little bit, a couple of them, Chad Hartman and Dan Barrero, 2 gentlemen that I know, who in my growth have been kind of instrumental. But it's kind of crazy how life to a degree comes full circle. If you would have told 13-year-old Ross that 25 years from now, you're going to appear on a Tom Barnard podcast. First off, I would have said, what is the Tom Barnard podcast?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Second off, just to have you agree to come and do this, I think that's really damn cool.
Yeah, but I've always liked you. You've always been very pleasant.
Well, it's fun what this business allows you to do. By and large, most of the people are great, but they're not all great.
No, they're not all great.
Yeah,
That's true.
So you pick and choose the ones that you like and you want to associate with. So I say all that to say this. Let's talk some sports if you don't mind.
Today I'd love to talk sports because I was tuned in.
Well, our Minnesota Twins are surging, Tom. They've now won 2 in a row as we record this podcast. It'll drop later on this evening. And we don't even really need to talk about the here and now and the current. Maybe we'll get there. But I actually kind of want to take a lot of people are watching this podcast. They will know of your history with the Minnesota Twins. A lot of people, they will not. For some people listening, this could be one of their first introductions into Tom Barnard. Probably not, but it's safe to assume not everybody knows. Take me back to, I guess, the mid-'80s, but more specifically, 1987, I believe, in the Twins World Series run, with your light and happy music and basically getting the Minnesota Twins to show up on the KQ morning show. And then, oh, by the way, they go on to win the World Series, which is why I have always joked, Tom Barnard, without that music, do the Twins win a World Series in 1987? I'm not convinced that they do.
Well, Gary Gaetti I started on KQRS on April 15th, 1986. So, next year, if I hadn't been fired, I would have been there for 40 years. So I was there for right around 37 years. And I remember sitting on, Stretch and Z had a talk show over on Channel 4. And they invited me on, and Herbeck was on, and Gary Guidy. This is right after the World Series in 87. And Gary said, I don't know how it happened, but I was listening to you in August of 1986. And we were in a pretty decent year, not a great year, but a pretty decent year in August. They're kind of getting ready to go. This is in April, just when the season had just started. But so the season wraps up in 86. And I said, basically on April 15th or 16th, 1986, the only reason I'm doing this show is because I guarantee you 1 year from now, the Twins are going to win the World Series. And the Twins were horrible in 1985, and 86 weren't that great either. But these guys were very young then. The Herbecks and the Gaettis and the Timmy Laudners of the world, all these great, great players they came to be. Johnny Castino, I always loved Johnny Castino as a player. But I predicted, and I kept predicting for that entire summer during the Twins baseball season in 1986 that they, not this year, but next year they're going to win the World Series. And when it did come to fruition, people were shocked. But if you look, everything's a numbers game. Everything is. And you looked at the youth and the talent that team had. Nobody had ever even heard of most of those players. There's no question about it. But I just kept doing comparisons between what they were doing and what the Baltimores of the world were doing and this and that and the other thing. And, of course, it was a bold prediction because there's no way I could guarantee the Twins were going to win in 1988 or 87, 87 and 91 were their two World Series victories. But I just knew somehow, Ross, you and I talked about this. One of the happiest days of my life, David Anderson, a friend of mine, his father took David and me to a Twins game in 1960 or 61. I can't remember which year it was. What was their first year, 60 or 61?
I think it was 61, right?
I think that's right. So it was 1961.
Twins were the same year, right? I could be admittedly, I could be off on that. I apologize that I don't remember, but it's 60 or 61.
I would be right there with you because I know it's either 60 or 61. And, I'll have
my computer phone tell me here in 1 second.
Oh, there you go. That's
phone
true.
Will give us the answer.
I like that. That works for me. But we're sitting at the game, and we're from North Minneapolis. Like I said, I had troubles with my father being gone all the time and in and out, and he's this, that, and the other thing. And he had just been taken to mental institution 2 years earlier because I was 9 years old. And did you find a year?
1961. So
we were right.
Yeah, we were right.
There you go. So I was 9 years old because I turned 10 in 61. I'm 9 years old, and I couldn't believe the beauty of that stadium. I had never been in a stadium before, not even, I saw North Commons Park. They had a backstop in the softball field. They had a baseball field too, but.
I know the park, by the way.
Oh, I love that park.
Yep.
Spent a lot of time playing in that park, man. But I sat there and looked at all this beauty of how well the mowing was just spectacular to me, and the lines were perfectly straight and everything was just wonderful. And then the sun started going down and the lights came on. I went, oh my God, I literally thought I was in heaven. I want to go to these games all the time. And I think our tickets that day were like $1 a piece.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. The ticket prices. Now I know times have changed. It's been 60 years, but I got to imagine the correlation isn't exactly perfect. If you would have said that $1, I guarantee you that $1 ticket now should probably be what? I don't know, $7-8, and now we're charging. What's the cheapest in the door now? $16 at Target Field?
I would guess that's probably about right. 15,
maybe that does equate. I shouldn't speak on things that I don't really know. But kind of what you're talking about, Tom, though, is exactly, this podcast, I try and do like half let's talk current sports, half I just want to ask random questions to the guest.
Right.
But you have such a depth in history. It's just kind of fun to go all over the place. We talked about this yesterday on the Tom Barnard podcast. What I love about sports sometimes has nothing to do with the actual outcome. I agree. It's what you just talked about. It's that in a difficult time of your life, sports were there for you. I also told you
Correct.
yesterday, I love when you go to a Minnesota sporting event, any sporting event in any state, and you sit down. You don't give a bleep if the person next to you is a Democrat, Republican,
No, you do not.
independent.
Right.
You care that they're there cheering for the same team you are, and it's one of a few good things left in life that for now, politics has worked its way in a little bit, but it hasn't been completely politicized, and it's kind of it's still a great uniter that sports can bring a heck of a lot more people together than they can tear each other apart, and I truly love that about sports and athletics.
What that game did for me, by the way, the Twins did win that game. I believe Harmon Killebrew got the winning. I don't remember who the pitcher was. Yes, I do remember who. 1960, God.
Mudcat Grant. Was it
either Mudcat Grant or Camilo Pasquale, maybe.
Okay.
Might have been Camilo, but I'm not sure.
Great names in Twins history.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that.
First off, great names and great players.
Yes. So 61 rolls along. I go to my first Twins game, and I'm just in love immediately with Major League Baseball. Then I find out later we now have a professional football team called the Minnesota Vikings. I'm walking down West Broadway in North Minneapolis. I'm coming up on Lyndale Avenue. On the left side, Size Menswear is there. I don't think it's there anymore, and I look and it says Minnesota Viking quarterback Fran Tarkenton. And so I walk in, and Fran Tarkenton walks. I had never even heard of him. I don't know who Fran Tarkenton is. I don't even know what the NFL is at that point. He came over and was so nice to me, a 9-year-old boy. I couldn't even believe it. He took a picture with me. I wish I could. I still have the picture, but I don't. So I take a picture with Fran Tarkenton. And then, of course, that fall, your University of Minnesota Gophers won the national football title.
Okay, so put a pin in that, because I'm gonna ask you about that here shortly, because that's one of my undying loves. I'm actually wearing a University of Minnesota polo.
I see that.
I do want to ask you about the Vikings and Fran Tarkenton in the ensuing years when he was in the NFL playing in Super Bowls. Then after that, he's become a wildly successful entrepreneur. Still works most days. Did you ever have a chance to interview him face to face on the phone? And did you ever tell him about what that memory meant for you and how cool you thought it was?
I did.
You have that opportunity?
He was in Studio B at KQRS, and just meeting him for the second time, because I had met him and shook hands with him when I was 9 years old, about to turn 10. But he came into studio several times. For some guys, that was great, by the way, but other guys, I wish they had never come in because I didn't care for them. They're, most of those guys are dead now, so I probably won't say who they are.
Was it the old "don't meet your heroes"?
Yes, in a way it was. In a way it was. But Fran was always great to me. I mean, he used to come on my show all the time at the Q, and obviously he didn't remember shaking my hand in 1961, but, so it was 25 years later. But always very pleasant guy, really, really a good guy. I always thought he was going to win a Super Bowl. He was such a good quarterback. And Chuck Foreman, he's another guy. I adore Chuck Foreman. I think the world of that man. Nicest guy. Last time I saw him, a couple of years ago, I was walking into the dining area at Golden Valley Country Club, and he was sitting there with another friend. And he sees me, and he jumps up, walks over, and gives me a big hug. Is like, man, I haven't seen you in a long time, Tommy. How you doing? That going from Plymouth Avenue in North Minneapolis to Fran Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman and all these things throughout my life, I just cherish that so much. I can't even tell you. Honest to God, Ross, it's things have happened to me. They just happened, or they happened for a reason or whatever, but it's been just magnificent.
Well, and the funny thing here, too, is, I will always be a fan. Sometimes I can take a step back and take more of that media approach. But you and I talked yesterday. I'll never let the fandom go, and I'll never understand how people who cover teams say I'm not a fan. You might not be a fan of the team that you're covering, but you're a fan of another team. You're a fan. Yeah. But it is fun when you get to meet some of these people outside of the realm that you get to know them. And I believe I know him much less than you do, but I've gotten to know John Randall just a tiny bit here over the last few months. And I know you guys know each other fairly well because I believe you've golfed together a few times.
Oh, yeah, a lot, yeah.
I mean, this is a guy, his entire job, I just sound like Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy.
Here's a guy.
Now, here's a guy. John Randall's entire job in the NFL was to terrorize quarterbacks.
Yes.
And even get to the running back as he could. You know, he was a fierce guy. Then you meet him, and he is the nicest, kindest,
no doubt,
gentle giant you will ever meet in your entire life.
100%
And you wonder,
correct.
you used to try and murder Brett Favre, right? You're the same guy? Like, it's crazy. But it's fun to meet some of these people. Yeah, exactly. But it's fun to meet some of these people outside of what you know them for. Because we're all, on a base level, we're all humans. We're not just our jobs. So it's fun to meet these people in a different element, more of a, this is such a bad way of putting it, but just the human element of being the person that you are, not the occupation that you're known for.
What's really funny is one of the first times I ever saw Johnny was at a restaurant, and he was there with his wife, and I was there with my wife. And at the same time, I said to him, and he said to me, "Man, your wife is beautiful." Because they are both very beautiful women. There's no question about that. I don't know why they put up with us, but I just went to, as a matter of fact, Joe Souchere was doing an appearance at the golf event down at the convention center.
Yeah, the golf show. Yep.
Yeah, the golf
show. Yep.
And Johnny Randall was there, as a matter of fact. He was kind of the host of the deal. I walk in, and he sees me. "Tommy!" screams, stop, and runs over, gives me a big hug. The guy is so wonderful to me, I can't even tell you. Just a magnificent human being.
So in a couple of weeks, I will be checking out the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I can't wait to go to his bust, take a picture, and then just send it and troll it to him and tell, this bust looks a lot nicer, better looking than the actual person, just to rile him up and get him going. Okay, Gopher football. I'm a Gopher football season ticket holder with a buddy, a couple of other buddies who are down there. I'm not naive enough to think that the Gophers are ever going to win another national championship in football. By the way, they've won 7. Wisconsin has won 0. I'll get that out there.
There you go.
Tom, it doesn't matter when they won them. They all count. And I love when people are like, well, when they won, they were playing with leather helmets. Well, no, that's not true for all of them. It's true for some of them.
Some of them they were. Yeah.
Also, I will always say this, Tom. What is the point in celebrating a championship this year if you're going to tell me in 15 years it doesn't matter?
It's ridiculous. First of all, it's totally ridiculous.
Yeah. When you've won them, it always matters. But I will say this. I still think there is a chance, especially in today's day and age for college football, where the Gophers could conceivably, they probably wouldn't win it, but they could make a college football playoff, lose right away.
You could,
They've teetered on relevancy the last handful of years. But to me, what I love about it is, again, just the camaraderie of being there. College games are slightly more relaxed than NFL games, not by the players on the field, but the fans just aren't. I love the Vikings, but it's a different crowd when you go to a Vikings game versus a Gopher football game. But, you're talking about memories. Years ago, my grandmother lived to be 98 and a half. She passed away shortly before COVID. But I remember I actually sat down, Tom, and I interviewed her. But before I interviewed her, just about all the changes she had seen in her life. Think about being born in the early 1900s and living 98 and a half years. Well, kind of what brought this on was at one point we went out to where all old people love to go to dinner. I'll let you guess. You got a few guesses. Where did, if you go back 10 years, where did old people love to go to dinner?
10 years. Is it downtown Minneapolis?
No, it's not. It's actually more of a chain. It's not Perkins, but it's Baker Square.
Oh, Baker Square. I haven't thought of them in a long time.
Yeah, the really old people, Tom, much older than you and I, they love Baker Square. By the way, so did I. The pie was good. But I'm talking to her. She, out of nowhere, I can't believe I never talked about this with her. She's a big sports fan. She'd listen to the Twins all the time. She would watch the Vikings on Sunday, then call my dad and complain about the Vikings. My dad is her son. And just one day we're talking, and she's naming, Murray Warmath, and she's naming a couple players from all these teams. And I'm thinking, Grandma, I love sports. I love football. I love Gopher football. How have we never talked that you would sit at home in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and listen to Gopher games on Saturdays? I just thought that was so cool, and it's another human connection that sports do for people. I was always incredibly close with my grandma, but that was just a really cool moment. So for you, you got to see the Twins win 2 World Series. I vaguely remember 1991. You were around during the 65 World Series. You told me when we talked yesterday. You remember it.
Yep.
You also will remember, the 1980 Olympics very well. I don't. I only know what I can watch on TV. I didn't live it. But you can vividly remember Gopher football winning national championships.
1961,
There were definitely less teams, but there were still a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And it was a huge deal. Tom, I'm jealous sitting here that you got to live that. Because I don't think I ever will. But you did.
No, it's much more competitive now. It's so much more competitive than it used to be. One thing I got to move before we move on, I got to tell you quickly. My mother's mother, her name was Minnie Wilhelmina Dane. Okay. She was 6 feet tall, was born in Germany, 6 feet tall, weighed 200 pounds, and was not fat. That's a big woman.
That's a strong lady.
She was the sweetest human being you'd ever. She could have beat the hell out of most men, but she was the sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. She was just a sweetheart. I adored her. Grandma Minnie, the greatest. So now there's so much competition, and they're kind of structuring it now where some teams will never win the national title because they're not in the right bracket. It's just never going to happen.
And they don't have, and quite honestly, in today's day and age, now with the name, image, and likeness, which I'm sure you follow, not everybody has as much money, and it's basically now become an arms race into. Again, we've talked about this before. Money doesn't guarantee that you're going to win, but it makes it a lot easier. And the more money that you have, it can cover up mistakes. And now the fact that you can flat out pay college athletes to play for your teams, everybody says that will level the playing field. And I've always said all that means is, first off, the programs that were illegally paying players before, now they can just do it legally.
Right.
And newsflash, the same programs that are good, 90% of them are going to be as good, if not better, because now they can just bring in more money to feed that. But that had to be really cool. Can you give me, because I'm assuming you went, I love looking at pictures of it, and I have a bunch of old programs. What was Memorial Stadium like?
Oh, it was wonderful because it was open on that one end. Did you ever go there? Did you ever get a chance to go there?
No, because when did it close down in 82, 84?
That's about right. Yeah.
I was born in 86, Tom.
Oh, yeah, so you had no shot.
I completely missed it. I know to a degree they built U.S. Bank Stadium, not in its likeness, but they kind of modeled after Memorial with the open end. So there's some similarities, but no, I never got there.
What I loved, my very first game at Memorial Stadium back in the day, I don't remember who the Gophers were even playing, doesn't matter. It was the stadium announcer, was fantastic. And right now I just cannot, God, I knew his name forever and I can't remember it anymore.
It wasn't Dick Jonkowski who did basketball for you.
It was not.
Was it? Okay.
No, it was not. It was, God, and what's going to happen as soon as you get off the air, I'll remember the guy's name. But he did. The Minnesota Gophers are on the field, ladies and gentlemen. He was one of those kind of guys, right?
Like the 1920s baseball announcer?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Here he comes now.
So we're watching the game, and there's a flag, and nobody knows why the ref threw a flag. And then all of a sudden you saw this squirrel running across the stadium carpet, or grass, I guess it was back then, running across the grass. And there's not a chirp going on. There's no sound at all. And then all of a sudden you hear, "There's a squirrel on the field." I will never forget that as long as I live.
I really thought the story was going to that the squirrel took the flag.
Well, it probably did, come to think of it. It probably did do that. But that, just the fact that he would get on mic and say, "There's a squirrel on the field."
So one of my favorite Gopher football stories that is not mine from years ago, I used to work with a gentleman during my media sabbatical, and he told me, he was older than me. I think he said in the 60s, maybe late 60s, just like I do now. About once a year, I travel to a Gopher road game. Go with some buddies. It's a great time. He would do the same thing, and he was telling me, he goes, "I love that you do this. I did this growing up with my buddies," but for him, it was late 60s. And he told me a story, which you probably remember, They would go down to Evanston, Illinois to take on Northwestern.
Sure.
And they would just drub Northwestern. And the Northwestern student section, I just love this. I think of this all the time, more often than I probably should. The Northwestern student section, it's a really smart school. Mm-hmm. They would chant, "It's all right, it's okay, they'll work for us one day."
Well, there you go.
Or someday, something along those lines. Okay, we're getting close to wrap-up time, but I do want to
ask.
ask
Oh my God,
you,
already?
I mean, we're 36 minutes in. I'll get some more out of you before I let you go, though. Let's talk about present day, because I know you're still. Right. I mean, when we talked yesterday, you said, I think you said, I'm reeling. I'm really feeling it because our Twins are so poor. Well, now they've won 2 in a row since we last talked.
I watched the game today. Yep.
You called me up earlier this week as we arranged some times to do a couple pods, and Tom goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm watching our favorite baseball team. And Tom goes, "Are you watching the New York Mets?"
Well, they were in town.
Because that's who the Twins were playing, and they'd already lost a game, or they were losing that night when we talked. But you're still plugged into all of this. I know when Judd Zolgad and Phil would join you on your pod, you'd be talking about, Judd, Phil, give me some good news. Vikings need to win. You pay attention to all these teams. And I know, I mean, we got on here to record. It's where we recorded moments after the Twins just won in walk-off fashion. They almost blew it, but at the end of the day, they won. Yep, and Tom goes, "I'm feeling pretty good. We won another game." So
2 in a row, baby.
Yeah. And you know what? The season's so long, who knows? At the end of the year, we could look back at this team and say, boy, they started 5-11, but they still finished 92-70. You truly never know. But
you don't.
I think it's great that I'm not trying to put you out to pasture. I apologize if that's what it sounds like.
Not a problem.
But I love that you've gone through this for literal decades, and you're still just actively engaged, and you want the teams to do well, and you're openly admitting, this team's terrible. It's really affecting my mood. I love that. I love that.
I think the reason for that is that I love Minnesota. I've been offered jobs all over the United States, all over Europe too, as a matter of fact. We should come and do our morning show. It's like, no, I'm good. You like being up there in the winter and the blah, blah, blah. I am quite grateful for and with what Minnesota has done for me. I came from a family without a father. He was gone. He was mentally ill and he was institutionalized. My mother worked 55, 60 hours a week as a diner waitress. She's not making a lot of money. We were dirt poor, but I had a dream what started it all was that time that David Anderson's father took us to that Twins game. I said, I don't know if I'll ever be a baseball player, and I sucked, so I never was. But same story. If that could be built by a sports team, this beautiful stadium with wonderful weather, and you get your little, Coca-Cola in a cup, and it made me see that there was a better world out there. Now, I grew up in North Minneapolis. Yes, I love North Minneapolis to this day. I believe we lived in 40 different houses because we were so poor. Sometimes the rent came due and it didn't happen. But to go from that to see such beauty at 9 years old, and then start paying attention, and then you see football happens. It's 1961. You see this, that, and the other thing. My whole life has been magical to me. It really has, because I've met the Chuck Formans of the world and the Johnny Randalls of the world and Kent Herbeck and Laudner and Gaetti and all these wonderful people. I've had a magnificent life. There are some people who don't care for me because they tend to be very, very honest, and they kind of don't like that stuff. I've pissed off the Polads more times than I could ever mention, I'm sure. But look, they owned our team, and therefore you won 2 World Series, and I will never forget that family won 2 World Series for me. And it was just for me. You guys happen to watch it too, but it was just for me.
Well, and again, when you think about it too, Glenn Taylor's gone through this, and Glenn Taylor with the Timberwolves, he deserves a lot of heat. He should also get some credit for saving the team after just 5 years. Now, does all that negativity outweigh the positives? I don't know. Right. I also don't believe you can just blindly rip somebody all day long and then not at least give them a little bit of credit where it matters. And I've also had my issues with the Pohlad family. I believe that time is coming to an end. There's a chance they could pull the team back off the market.
Yeah.
I don't believe that that's going to happen, Tom, because when you're $500 million in debt, I think the only way to get out of debt is probably to sell the Minnesota Twins. And I think the fans are basically telling them in attendance and because of the product on the field, we're not coming until you're gone. But yeah, they honestly, I mean, they should get credit for that. North Stars never won a Stanley Cup, but they went to 2. Which I'm sure you remember. I still, and we'll start to close with this, Tom, I still, to this day, fan bases that I dislike, I've tried to get away from using the word hate because I don't think having hate is good. So I've tried to get away from that. Fan bases that I dislike can't stand the Badgers. I despise the University of Wisconsin infinitely more than I do the Green Bay Packers. And it's not even close. Largely, and I hope some of them are listening, Noah Winter, I believe your name is. I grew up in Lakeville, Minnesota. I am so tired of every good basketball player from Lakeville, Minnesota, going to play for the Badgers. You go to the Badgers, you're just another kid that's played for a good university. Yeah. Come to Minnesota and take Minnesota to the Final Four. We'll build you a bleeping statue. I can't stand the Badgers. To this day, I really dislike the Dallas Stars. They won that Stanley Cup in what? 97, 98. That was our Stanley Cup with Mike Modano. That's ours. That's our Stanley Cup, and I despise that you have it. I know Norm Green sucked. We all remember that. Yep. But that was our Stanley Cup. I think I still dislike the Dallas Stars more than almost any other team in all of sports.
I got a call from Norm Green's people to go over to meet him in a cafe. He said he wants to talk to you because, you got the biggest show in America and he wants you to talk about this and announce it. I'm going, oh my God, is he going to acquire a bunch of people? This would be great. This is wonderful. So I sit down, I'm having lunch with him. And right away I notice, and I don't know why the other people there didn't say something or do something about it. The entire time he talked to me, there was a big hair coming out of his nose, it would wave back and forth. I mean, it was literally about an inch long.
Yuck.
I'm like looking at that. And then he announces he's going to move the team to Dallas. And I'm like, you made me come all the way down here to tell me that you were going to, because Louis Nanny and I became really, really good friends. Louis is a dear friend. His whole family, as a matter of fact, good friends. And I was like, you're going to move the team to Dallas. And why would you bring me down here to tell me that?
And he basically ripped your heart out right in front of you.
No question about that.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. There are times like that. There are some people out there, and I'm very serious about this, that think I hate the Pohlads, which is not true. I don't know most of them. I know a couple of them. It's not like I hang out with them or anything. But when I was attacking the team, it was well deserved. The Pohlads were not doing a good job, so I criticized them. Oh, you hate the Pohlads. Like, no, actually, I've only met 2, and I never did meet Carl. But I met a couple of the other Pohlads. They're very nice people. But people think I absolutely hate the Pohlads, and it's just not true. I don't carry it that far.
Well, and also, Tom, when people like you, and I guess I to a degree, when you're going after players or athletes,
yes,
oftentimes I'm going after the ball player on the field or the football. Yeah. I'm not going after the person.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely.
I get very frustrated that Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton, and Carlos Correa never play. Right? Yeah. I get very frustrated at that. Yeah. I will also admit Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis, they want to play. And they're also probably equally as frustrated. But I'm not attacking you personally. I'm attacking the situation or maybe your play on the field. I'm not saying because you're a 210 hitter and a bad baseball player that you go home and you're the world's worst father.
Right.
So let's back off on that and say and let's not say, oh God, you hate that person, you're so negative. No, I might dislike the player or what they bring to the team. They might be the world's greatest person. That's not what that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sports.
It's so amazing. The player. When the ratings went through the roof, like I said, I had a 40 share, highest rated morning show in America. I would run into some people and they would go, God, I ran into you. I never thought I'd run into you. And, I hope you don't get too mad at me when I criticize you. And I said, no, of course not. Because here's the deal. Like the players, if you hate Tom Barnard, it's the radio guy that you hate, not me personally. I understand that. I've heard many people, oh, God, I hate Tom Barnard. I just hate that guy. it's the person on the air that you hate, not me. I don't take that stuff personally at all. And if I say I hate somebody, I don't mean that at all either personally. It's the guy, that dropped the football and didn't make the touchdown.
Well, and also when you live more of a life that's out in the open, you have to get comfortable knowing that people are going to criticize you. When I do stuff for Score North or even on this podcast, you would not believe the comments that I get about, oh, what you look like. You're an idiot. I hate your voice. You're stupid. You're just behind a microphone. You never played. You must suck at all the sports anyways. Okay, probably true. I'm not Brad Pitt. And I did suck at most of the sports. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. That doesn't mean that I can't criticize or compliment. And also when I see a lot of those comments, Tom, and it's a little bit different now in today's day and age because, as you know, a lot of people used to just think those things, you never heard it.
Right.
Now people can get behind their keyboard, put a fake name to it, and they'll tell you what they think. And my thought has always been, if you don't like me, if you say negative comments, that's entirely fine. I don't think 1 second about them. I really don't. I'm being honest.
No.
If you go out of your way to leave me a compliment, that means a hell of a lot more than any negative thing that you say.
I agree with that 100%.
That's where I'm at with all that. Final question for you.
It's not real. It's not me they hate. It's that Tom Barnard that's on the radio. It's not that I'm faking it either. That's not what I mean. But I can't just sit around and go, yeah, that was kind of great. I'm a lot bigger than that on the radio.
Well, boy, that Gary Anderson missed field goal that should have sent the Vikings to the Super Bowl, that kind of sucked, didn't it?
Yeah, right. So you can't do it that way.
Who's gonna listen to you if you're not honest and give a decent opinion? So here's the final question for you. All time, you don't have to have met the person. Just all time. Who is your favorite athlete? Like, who did you watch and just go, boy, that person is either just a really great player or that person just is awesome and I just respect everything about them. And it can be somebody you've met, but who is that one player where you will go to your grave? I'll give you two. Give me a couple. Who are the players that you go, they're just awesome?
I would say this, that there are a whole bunch of people at the very top. There's no question about that. But the one guy, because he is who he is, that I absolutely adore is Kent Herbeck. I just love that guy. He's a big fella. I like big fellas anyway. And I've always liked him. Any guy that's 6'5", weighed about 270 at the time, 280, and could stretch, do the whole double leg stretch and catch a poorly thrown ball to first base. I mean, that's a hell of a talent. But there's the Timmy Laudners and the Gary Gaettis of the world. There's Fran Tarkin that I already mentioned, and a lot of great Chuck Foreman. I just love that man. So there's one just a tick above everybody else, but there's about 100 guys right there at 99 degrees, and then Kent's at 100.
Kent had the great line, and I'm going to butcher this, but I think it was either at Kent Herbeck's retirement deal at the Metrodome, or maybe it was something for Kirby Puckett, and I think you'll remember this better than I will. But Kent Herbeck, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact line, but I think about it a fair amount, and I giggle about it when I think about it. Kent said something like, all across the state of Minnesota, there's a bunch of children named Kirby, and there's a lot of dogs and cats named Herbie.
We actually had a dog named Herbie. That's very true. He was right about that. Yeah. I'll close with this.
Bunch of kids named Kirby and a bunch of dogs and cats named Herbie.
My favorite Kent Herbeck story, and this was years ago, and I don't know why this guy did this. Some guy was driving like a lunatic and cutting Herbeck off and being just a pain in the ass. You know how some people get behind the wheel. So finally, the guy pulls over and like waves to Kent, like, oh, you want to do something about it? So Kent gets out of the car and walks over, and the guy doesn't shut up. And then the guy, like, I don't know, he threw something at him or whatever. So Herbeck drilled him. He punched him because he's defending himself. Guy's throwing stuff at him, trying to hurt him, right? And I said, after you drilled him, did you say anything to him? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, what'd you say? And he goes, life's a bitch, ain't it? I would not want Kent Herbeck punching me. I will tell you that.
No, I think even in his ball playing days, where maybe he was a bit more svelte, I wouldn't want to mess with him because he was a bigger guy at that time too.
He was, and just a wonderful, wonderful man. Ken Herbeck is one of my favorite people in the world, not just players, but he's a great guy. He really is.
I always think about him schlepping and pitching carriers.
Oh, yeah.
Those carrier commercials.
No question about it.
Tom, this has been a ton of fun. I want to remind people the Tom Barnard podcast daily, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. And I know you have recently hopped into the YouTube machine as well. You do it with your wonderful family. So I want people to check that out as well. I will hop on your show at some point down the road whenever you'll have me back. And I'll have you back at some point as well if you would oblige me in doing so.
That spot you played at the beginning?
Yes.
We'll get them to sponsor you on my show, and you get all the money. I don't get anything. We'll get them to sponsor.
Great. Anybody who wants to throw me money, please do so. Minnesota Sports Chat.
Yes, exactly.
Gmail.com. I'll give you my Venmo. We'll set something up. Thank you so much for doing this, Tom.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I loved it. I love having you on. I love being on your show. And we're going to show up together a lot more from now on.
Wonderful. That is Mr. Tom Barnard. Again, the Tom Barnard podcast. Wherever you get your pods, they have their own app, website as well. Just Google it. You'll find it. Find him on the YouTube machine as well. I am at the Ross Brendel on the Elon Musk machine, the X machine. That's where I am mostly active. You can find me there at the Ross Brendel on X. Minnesota Sports Chat is available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm back here in this feed next week.